I remember a clip of him talking with Rand Paul in the Senate, where they're talking about the risk to kids. And Rand Paul correctly points out that the risk to kids of COVID infections in 2020 is pretty low. And then Fauci brings up a very rare thing that sometimes happens with children who get COVID. He called it the Kawasaki's-like syndrome. At that point, there were like 4 cases of it, or I mean, very small number of cases of it in Italy, and all the kids recover. And he's like putting that in the minds of parents that you should be, even though your kid might not die, they're going to get this weird Kawasaki's-like syndrome that you never heard of before.
With regard to going back to school, one thing that was left out of that discussion is mortality. I mean, shouldn't we at least be discussing what the mortality of children is? This is for Dr. Fauci as well. You know, the mortality between 0 and 18 in the New York data approaches 0. It's not going to be absolutely 0, but it almost approaches 0. Between 18 and 45, the mortality in New York was 10 out of 100,000. And I think the one-size-fits-all that we're going to have a national strategy and nobody's going to go to school is kind of ridiculous. We really ought to be doing it school district by school district, and the power needs to be dispersed because people make wrong predictions. And really the history of this, when we look back, will be of wrong prediction after wrong prediction after wrong prediction, starting with Ferguson in England. So I think we ought to have a little bit of humility in our belief that we know what's best for the economy. And as much as I respect you, Dr. Fauci, I don't think you're the end all. I don't think you're the one person that gets to make a decision. But if we keep kids out of school for another year, what's going to happen is the poor and underprivileged kids who don't have a parent that's able to teach them at home are not going to learn for a full year. Well, I think it's a huge mistake if we don't open the schools in the fall.
I have never made myself out to be the end-all and only voice in this. We don't know everything about this virus, and we really better be very careful, particularly when it comes to children, because the more and more we learn, we're seeing things about what this virus can do that we didn't see from the studies in China or in Europe. For example, right now, children presenting with COVID-19 who actually have a very strange inflammatory syndrome, very similar to Kawasaki's syndrome. I think we better be careful if we are not cavalier in thinking that children are completely immune to the deleterious effects. So again, you're right in the numbers that children in general do much, much better than adults and the elderly, and particularly those with underlying conditions. But I am very careful and hopefully humble in knowing that I don't know everything about this disease, and that's why I'm very reserved in making broad predictions.
He leaned into panic mongering throughout the pandemic,